3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, and you know what that means. It's time for Ash Wednesdays. That's right. Episode 5, Legacy 36, if you care about those sort of things. Special Carnageized Edition. Look at that. This is a rarity. Only one of its kind. It's going to put your kids through college. Get it now while it's hot. Yeah, look at this. Carnageized Edition. No shit. The Marvel Comics #1s this week. Whoo boy. Let's get on with it. Absolute Carnage. Lethal Protector #1. These #1s, you have to get them. There's not many. Marvel doesn't do #1s very often. And, you may have missed Lethal Protector back in the 90s, 20 years ago. You may have missed it. But here, you can get a new Lethal Protector #1. And see, it'll be just the same. Just the same. Not to be outdone with an Absolute Carnage #1, we got 2 Absolute Carnage #1s. So that makes it, by my count, see, we got 1 on the first week, 2 the second week, 1 the third week. Let's see, we got, we got 6. This is 6 #1s now so far, in less than that amount of weeks. Oh boy. Amazing Spider-Man Venom 3D #1. Oh boy. So this is a reprint book. And I decided to count it because they slapped a #1 on it. So if you slap a #1 on the book, I don't care what's inside it. Now, it's got new stuff. It's all 3D. I actually kind of would like to read this. This is Todd McFarlane. What's interesting is this. It's the cover of the Spider-Man 300, one of those sought-after books. And it has, Spider-Man in a circle, and it's called the 300s, and the pattern in the background. They got rid of the 300s, and they just put 3D. It's like Marvel doesn't even care about its own history anymore. They just care about gimmicks and #1s. Speaking of gimmicks and #1, oh, by the way, that's $7.99. $4.99, $3.99, $7.99. Fantastic Four, 4 Yancey Street, #1. That's a lot of numbers in that. I don't even know what this is about. I just don't even care. It's $4.99. I'm sure everyone's going to buy it, right? It's going to sell 1 million copies. CB Cebulski is going to go down as the greatest editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. Marvel Monsters #1 for $4.99. Make sure you're getting that. You're getting your $5 worth on your comics. Then we've got Marvel's Spider-Man Velocity. Why is it Marvel's Spider-Man? They don't call it anything else. It's not Marvel's Captain America. Marvel's. It's just called Spider-Man Velocity. Like, why do we need so many subtitles and all this stuff in the names? Anyways, because Marvel can't really sell its own Spider-Man, it was licensed out to make a video game by Naughty Dog. They did the incredible PS4 game. By the way, PS4 game, I can't speak highly enough for it. It's not just the best Spider-Man game I've ever played. It's the best superhero video game I've ever played. And it borders on the best Spider-Man experience with comics, movies. It's phenomenal. It's worth buying a PS4. I did. And there's other good games on PS4 as well. But start with Spider-Man. Power Pack Grow Up #1. Oh, brother. At first I was moaning and groaning when I saw this. I've never been a Power Pack fan, but I saw they put Louise Simonson. Louise Simonson's writing this. She's old school. It's $4.99. I don't really want to read a book about little kids, but if this is up your alley, this might be the best #1 so far. Then we've got, not to be outdone, remember, every week, Star Wars #1. Every week. Sometimes 2, including this week. We have 2 Star Wars #1s. Star Wars Age of Resistance General Hux #1. And Star Wars Age of Resistance Poe Dameron #1. I wonder if it's like each book that'd be a really cool gimmick if each book was like synced with it. You read page 1 of Hux, and then you read page 1 of Dameron, back to page 2 of Hux, and it's just them like back and forth, jockeying, Can you hear me now? Can you remember the stupid joke? Can you hear me now? They put a Verizon commercial in a Star Wars comic. For fuck's sake. And then finally, not to be outdone, the king of all gimmick #1 comics of all time, Marvel Comics 1000 came out today. But Ash, that's not a #1. It's 1000. No. This is a 1000 times #1. This #1 was so big they had to add 3 zeros to the end of it. But Ash, it's not actually #1. No. It's #1. There's no Marvel 999 or 998 or 997 or 9. This is a new comic. Brand new. The first issue of a new comic. Whatever stupid. This is a #1. Believe me, they would have put Marvel Comics #1 on here if they thought it could have made them some money. But they realized with DC, with the Action Comics and Detective Comics, that 1000 is actually a better number. The problem is, while you can make #1s all day long, you can't make 1000s. It takes 80 years of history that Marvel doesn't have of printing books and having fans buying them over and over, month to month to month. So Marvel just said, well, screw it. We'll just make up our own. There's 12 normal non-incentive covers for this. One of the whales at my shop that I got down there early, he decided to buy all 12, $120. I was like, I just wanted to shake him, but he's got a lot of money to blow, I guess, whatever. But I'm like, I'd rather feed homeless people with $120 than blow it on this shit. Honestly. Maybe you want to just get one of them because you're curious to read. This is not going to be worth diddly squat ever. No one cares. Anyways. I got all excited. I forgot to add this all up. Let's see. There we go. Fixed it. $53.90 you can be in for. Just with the #1s. This isn't even counting all the normal books that are probably on your pull list. Normally, these ones weren't. Unless you pre-ordered them, they could have added them ahead of time. But if you're buying month to month and you already have your books that you get all the time, this is $53.90 extra on top of whatever you're paying that Marvel wants. This isn't even counting all the #1s that DC's doing, Dark Horse doing, Image doing. And I wonder why the comics industry is in peril. It's just driving fans away. The only people that can afford to buy comics are my whale buddy at the store who's retired and just has money to blow. It's just like, oh my goodness. Now, speaking of goodness in the news, you may have heard about this little convention that Disney puts on every year called D23. And this little franchise of films that they have called Star Wars at the D23 convention that just concluded, I think, past weekend. They released a new trailer for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. The first trailer didn't go off so well. I didn't really like it. I'm a big Star Wars nut, so I just like seeing new scenes of Star Wars, but as a trailer, it was kind of bad. This one was a lot better, but it relied heavily. I think 3/4 of the trailer was footage from the original trilogy and some of the prequels. And it relied heavily on this nostalgia, which I did not like. I did not like it because it's almost like throwing into fans' face, remember all that good shit you liked? Remember how we're screwing it up? Oh my goodness. So I really like this poster. It got leaked to me, last week maybe? I don't know. Some of my buddies sent it to me. I was like, oh, that's a cool poster. I thought this was actually Luke Skywalker in the background when I first saw it, but I was looking on my phone. It was real small. I mostly just looked at this and I thought, oh, okay, Luke Skywalker's Force Ghost, mentoring Rey. And then I realized later, oh, that's the Emperor. Gay. And I love the Emperor. It's one of my favorite villain characters of all time. And I got a confession to make to you guys, and please don't unsubscribe. I liked The Last Jedi. It's actually my favorite Star Wars movie outside of the Lucasfilms. My favorite non-Lucas Star Wars film. Better than Rogue One. Definitely better than Force Awakens. I think a lot of the problems that people have with Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, I'm reading it, with Last Jedi, in my honest opinion, are actually problems that stem from Force Awakens, that Rian Johnson was sort of stuck with. I don't get all the hate towards Rian Johnson other than the fact that people feel like he pissed all over their favorite franchise. But look, no one gets it more than me. How much, like, I may not seem like it. I don't talk about Star Wars that much. I am more of a fan of Star Wars than I'm a fan of anything. Like, I grew up, I've seen all the films in the theaters on their original releases dating back to 1977. One of my first childhood memories, period, is Star Wars. Star Wars has a fantastic effect on my life and who I am, my outlook, and everything. Not just my outlook on life, my outlook on fiction, on storytelling, everything. I'm a massive, massive Star Wars fan. I love the films. Now, I understand if not being done well, you get pissed off. Like, I am dreading Rise of Skywalker. And here's why. I feel that all of the backlash for Last Jedi is going to cause Disney to course correct and try to, quote unquote, fix things. That never works. You have to stick to your original vision of what you're going to do. Yes, you should listen to fans. Yes, you shouldn't just purposely go. But if you have you can't do like retcon bullshit just because like, oh, you didn't like that Luke Skywalker died in the last film? Okay, well, undo it. You can't do shit like that. You can't. If you're gonna try to fix that somehow, which I don't think it needs fixing. I honestly think Luke Skywalker died a honorable death. It was a ride off into the sunset sort of death that was very befitting of the character. I'm not going to get into the arguments. If anyone wants to talk to me about Star Wars, you can come onto my Discord. I'll be happy to talk about it. I don't talk about it much because honestly, anytime I mention it, people freak they just freak out on me. It's one of the most ridiculous identitarian groupthink controversies I've ever seen in the media. I've never seen more people rally around this sort of mindless hate towards something. And it is groupthink. It's so weird. When I leave social media and I just enter the normal world, I talk to my friends and family, whatever, like outside of social media, every single person I know likes The Last Jedi. Every single one. Now, I know that there's people out there, obviously, that don't, but the interesting, I'm one of the few people I know that's actually on social media. I really honestly believe that social media has trended towards this concept and just not necessarily brainwashing, but we're herd animals. We think like the pack. We want to fit in. And many of us are not confident oftentimes in our own decisions. If millions of people disagree with us, most people cave in and go, well, I guess I'm wrong then. If everyone's telling me I'm wrong, if everyone says the Star Wars sucks, it must suck, even if I liked it. You saw the Richard C. Meyer. He went and saw Last Jedi, and he liked it. And then everyone oh my God, Richard, you have the worst taste. And his taste is kind of bad. But, and then, a couple weeks later, he comes back and is like, well, I didn't like it that much. He started to change his tune. Because he started to cave in towards that peer pressure of like, you're stupid if you like it. I watched a Professor Geek video the other day, and I'm not wanting to bash on other YouTubers. Professor Geek's obviously way more popular than me. People love him. But I watched a video he did, and he talked about his reaction to this trailer. And his whole thing about the trailer wasn't really even a reaction to the trailer. It was just him calling everyone dumbasses if they liked the film. And they're like, you're a dumbass if you ask me this question, what I thought about the trailer. Of course I'm going to hate it. It's just garbage. Like, he just went off. I mean, you feel free to go watch it yourself, but I was just really taken aback. He was a guy I used to really enjoy watching before he kind of jumped headfirst into the Comicsgate thing and then made his own book. And now he just is like this, he's just constantly spewing like, I don't know. It's just not pleasant to watch. He used to like make good videos on like character archetypes and writing and things like that I thought were really valuable and insightful. And now he just is like, really, that whole video was nonstop. Just if you like this movie, then you're a dumbass. And if you try to make excuses for it, that's a dumbass excuse from a dumbass. There's no justifying this film. And then he talked about like people just having emotional reactions and you don't actually have any critical thinking skills. But then he displayed no critical thinking for himself. Anyways, whatever. Everyone's free to do what they want on YouTube. I didn't like that. I just, my point of all this, I got long-winded, was I responded on Twitter once. Some guy, it was like a week or two ago, some guy made a comment about something, and all I did was respond, I like Ryan Johnson. That's all I did. I responded, and then I got this like flame war on Twitter. People were calling me SJW and all this stuff. Just, I was like, how identitarian? You don't know anything about me. First of all, I'm absolutely not an SJW. This is utterly ridiculous. Oh man, but I like the film, and I guess I'm not going to go into why, but I am really apprehensive on this because I'm really, they did paint themselves into a corner. Episode 8 is a fine film with flaws. I will definitely admit there are flaws in the film, for sure. The flaws generally aren't the things that people point out. They're mostly this character right here, Ray. They're not actually Luke. Luke was handled fine. People just don't see it for whatever reason. I think that's because most of modern fandom has been polluted by the extended universe. And you'll find that a lot of fans will talk about oh, I wish the extended universe was back. That was like Professor Geek talks about how great the extended universe was, which is nonsense. The extended universe is garbage. 99% of it was just trash. But I guess, and a lot of the authors that wrote the extended universe stuff didn't understand Star Wars, so they changed how things were. They made Luke this more warrior guy. He's not. Luke was always the guy that threw his saber away. Remember this. Luke threw his saber away. Anyways, here's a fan version of the poster I got off of that one site, DeviantArt. I thought this was a really cool concept to have the Vader thing in the back. Not that great of a resolution, but enough talking about Star Wars. This was out there. I want to get my opinion. Not many people know what I think about Star Wars. I know I'm probably going to get a bunch of comments now calling me a dumbass because I don't know what I'm talking about. Liking Star Wars, I'm an idiot. I have no taste. I guess, if you want to feel that way. Joining me, as always, late introductions, Stan the Man, and our resident mascot, expert on all things trash, is Forky. And I got a burger. I got a drink. I got some comics. Let's get into this. You guys have been waiting long enough. I can hear Eric Breen waking up from his nap. What's going on? Look at that. Double. Where's all the lettuce? This is supposed to be smiling. I didn't ask for extra tomato. Double with onions. Extra spread, add pickles, and then ketchup on top of the spread. That's how I get my burger. If you ever want to try it yourself, if you have an In-N-Out nearby. If you don't have an In-N-Out nearby, I feel for you. Believe me, I was in Colorado for 17 years, and I was serious withdrawals. Withdrawals don't go away. So I'm going to eat this before it gets any less warm, and I'm going to come back, and we are going to talk about some comics. Thanks for getting this far. Stay tuned. It's almost there. All right, we're back. Now, my first purchase this week, got a new box. That's a pretty sick-ass picture of the box. Normally don't like the Marvel boxes because usually it's a bunch of shit, Marvel. But Marvel's making some progress. They're doing some turnarounds. Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman are some pretty... There's some pretty exciting talent, and I like what they're doing. And I will support good stuff while I rag on the bad stuff. I do really like Absolute Carnage. And so this box, they had a Darwin Cook Justice League box that I still really want. This was $4 cheaper. DC's box was $12.99. This was $8.99. $12.99 for a cardboard box is ridiculous. $8.99 for a cardboard box is ridiculous. But it's like $6.99 or $5.99 I think for the blank ones. So I was like, a couple bucks. I get the cool Absolute Carnage cover there. So what are you gonna do? Right. All right. So first things first, we got some DC previews and we got some Marvel Universe previews. So I'll be able to do these, talk about these. I really enjoy these videos. I don't know if you guys like them at all. They can tend to be long, but I enjoy going through and just kind of giving my reaction and talking either something, I'm excited about something or just shitting on it if I hate it. So if you like it, let me know. If you hate it, let me know. And that's You'll look forward to those. Then here's my comics. Oh, look at that pull list. It's gigantic. It's a huge week. Remember, kids, always show your receipts. Just as SJWs don't think you buy comics because they pirate comics. And so they think everyone else does. And somehow, miraculously, the comics industry just goes on with no one actually buying the comics. I don't know who they think buy the comics. I don't know who Marvel thinks buys their comics. I don't know why you would cater to a crowd that it's all about piracy, but that's just me. First out of the gate this week, we have Independence. And I only got one Independent this week, but it's a good one. I don't buy that many Independents, but check this out. I did a review on issue number 1. And I also did Descender number 1 after I did this because I wanted to check out. I like this so much, I went and bought the omnibus edition of Descender Volume 1. It has the first 16 issues out of 32. The second volume comes out in December. I'm going to probably get that. Really looking forward to. I haven't decided how I want to read this, though. So I like this so much, but I'm like, should I read Descender first? Part of me was like going alternating. Like I'll go issue 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. It's really neat. This is a really cool sci-fi story. Ascender features a little bit more fantastic elements, like fantasy style, like Star Wars. Descender is a little bit more hard sci-fi with no magic, at least not in the beginning, that I know of. So, think more like a Star Trek, if you would. It's not Star Trek, but what I'm saying with it's more science. But they're separated by many years apart. I think 10 years. The way I would compare these is like Star Wars versus the prequel trilogy. Not necessarily in terms of quality or anything like that, but just Ascender is more like Star Wars, Descender is more like the prequel trilogy, and then there's this big gap in between them. The characters aren't necessarily the same, but the world is the same. Anyways, you don't have, just like the original Star Wars trilogy, you don't have to have the prequels, you know what I'm saying? So if you don't think, you can jump right in on this. And in fact, I think some people will get a lot of more enjoyment than I think even Descender fans will, because they'll have that newness, being able to not know what's going on in that wonder of the world. So that's Sender. Really, check out I know I'm plugging myself, but just check out my video for number 1 on this. If you are a person looking for sci-fi fantasy in general, or if you're just a person who wants, what good indie books are out there. There's so much to sort through in the world of indies, and there's no sort of like quality gate or there's no definition or like, how do I say, there's no bar of quality, because they can be all over the map. They're creator owned, or you got these small time publishers. Some independents can be wildly astounding, and so many of them are just trash. And it's like, what do you pick? Check number 1 out. I really encourage you. Now, starting with DC, Martian Manhunter, number 8. I just did a video on 5, 6, and 7. I had been behind on the series, and number 6 was wow. Really enjoyed number 6. I'm really liking this series. It is this might be the best thing Steve Orlando has ever written. Not that I've read a ton of Steve Orlando stuff. I'm relatively new to him, but this is really strong. The art is what's breaking it for a lot of people. But as I'm reading this and as I'm getting used to the artist, he's still not a guy that I would want to do like my favorite books. But I'm okay. For Martian Manhunter and for this particular story, it kind of grew on me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can handle it for 12 issues. And I think it gives it a unique look. And this is an underrated, underappreciated, really overlooked miniseries that I think people should check out. Speaking of miniseries that are overlooked and underrated, is Freedom Fighters, number 8. Yeah, this guy right here. See this guy? Robert Venditti. Get a little close up in case you can't read. He's just sort of quietly writing this World War II. Sorry, it's not World War II. World War II alternate history story, as if if Germany had won World War II. What would the DC Universe be like, essentially. He's just quietly writing this story about these freedom fighters, and it's starting to get really, really good. So you've probably heard some people talk about this. This is another one to check out. If you missed out at this point and you don't feel like going back and getting the back issues, then definitely look up the trade when it comes out. Next is Flash. I get Flash from my friend's daughter to help keep encouraging her to enjoy comics, and so far that's been okay. Cost me money. I wish it didn't come out twice monthly, but there it is. Josh Williamson, the guy who's writing it, is one of the better writers at DC, and he doesn't really get notoriety because he's just quietly writing Flash, and people that read the book know, like, oh yeah, it's good. He writes one of my favorite indie books in Birthright, and another book that I pulled this week, which I'm excited to try. But Flash is a character that doesn't generate a lot of excitement. It's just like, oh yeah, Flash, cool. But that's one of the better books. And people talk about, DC is going downhill. Here's a good DC book. In fact, look, good, more good. Justice League Dark. James Tynion IV has a lot of detractors, but I think this is up his alley. And I think his collaborations with Scott Snyder on Justice League are really helping this book be solid. The Justice League books are where it's at with DC. DC may be shitting the bed with Superman, Action Comics, Batman, Wonder Woman, but they've got 3 Justice League books that are solid. The Dan Abnett book is probably the weakest of the bunch, in my opinion, but it's still great, and some people think that's their favorite, so I don't think you can miss. If you are interested in DC, I was never a Justice League person, ever, until I got back into comics, got back into DC, and then I was still like, Justice League doesn't seem up my alley. It's just goofy, like mixing all the top DC characters into a Justice League. It just seemed, I didn't like that. But a lot of people talked about like, oh, Justice League is my cornerstone of DC, because some of the YouTubers I followed and stuff. I got to get my Justice League. And so when they rebooted Justice League, I was a little annoyed. I was like, why are you rebooting this? Nonsense. There's no reason to have a new number one. I did not support that. But Scott Snyder is a guy that I really like as a writer. And he was doing the Justice League. And I do like James Tynion. When I got into DC, he was doing Immortal Men. And Immortal Men was my favorite of the New Age of Heroes. So that's how I discovered James Tynion. And I picked up that Justice League book. And originally I was just going to get those alternate covers. The Jim Lee, he was doing a picture for each of the Justice League characters as a full art cover. And I was like, that's a cool, I don't really like alt covers, but if you're going to do it, that was like kind of a cool gimmick for me. I think there were like 7 or maybe 8 of them. And I was like, I'll buy these just to get these cool covers, collect those issues, and that'll give me a chance also to experience Justice League, to see what it's like. So I'm not just prejudiced anymore. I'll actually have a real opinion, and it won me over. Scott Snyder's Justice League is really good. And just because it's not Batman, he doesn't get the notoriety that he did with his Batman run, but it might actually be better. Speaking of which, here it is. And then Jorge Jimenez is probably my favorite artist at DC. One of my favorite artists in general. He was the guy that did the original Super Sons run. Oh, so good. Really like his stuff. So can't speak highly enough of that. I'm getting a really fun book that I love, and I'm getting a great artist. That's a really hard combination to come by in modern comics. More out of DC. Batman's Detective Comics. This is a weird trade dress. Batman Detective. There's no Detective Comics. This is called Batman Detective. Is that the new logo? So again, look at this. People say, DC is going down the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not just adequate books. 6 good books on 1 week alone. This is just 1 week. DC is not dead. I think people are harsher on DC than Marvel. Marvel can completely shit the bed and put out 100 just utter dog shit titles, and then they make like one good book, like the new X-Men books, and oh my god, I love Marvel, and people just forgive. Marvel's great. Marvel's great. Marvel doesn't even produce 6 good books, period. Much less 6 in a week. Okay, maybe that's hyperbolic. Maybe they do produce 6, but DC, once a couple of titles go bad at DC, all the fans turn off. They're just like, I'm done. It's like, okay, so Bendis has got 2 bad Superman books. You got a bad Batman back. You got Wonder Woman and Aquaman. That's 5 bad books that DC has completely screwed the pooch on. And they are some of the more headline titles. That's the problem. But 5 bad books out of your entire line. There's probably a couple other books that aren't that great either. But that's just normal. That's just standard operating procedure in the comic business. You're always going to have bad books in your line. And you try to make them all good, hopefully, but you'll never succeed. Even Jim Shooter, the greatest publisher, in my opinion, of all time, during the greatest era of all time, and when Marvel Comics, he did not have 100% good books. Still, DC keeps hitting more home runs. Hopefully, I haven't read this. I have not read it, so I can't vouch like these other ones. I'm going to assume this is good because it's Josh Williamson, right? The guy who does Flash, the guy who does one of my favorite indie books, Birthright, doing Batman and Superman. Hopefully he understands the characters. He did the Button issue everyone liked, right? So he also did one of the other Batman crossovers. I forget what that was. I have high hopes. Now, DC, we keep talking about DC making good books. 6 good books and 1 hopefully also good book to make it 7. And then let's elevate it to outstanding, excellent books. Batman, Curse of the White Knight, issue 2. Holy crap. This book, so far, issue 1, it picks up where the first series left off. It was great. I did a review on it. Spoilers, 5-star, if you're curious about this, you can watch that review. Bravo, Sean Murphy. You're not a one-hit wonder. Now, obviously, you have to be able to wrap this up and finish it in a solid conclusion, like you did with the first White Knight. But yeah, I am in love with this book. And this is how comics should be. This is the greatness that we used to just sort of expect. This is a book not to be missed. Believe me, go get the original White Knight. I do not know why this is not the number 1 comic right now. It didn't even break 100,000 sales. Just mind-blowing to me. The art is phenomenal. The story is one amongst the best Batman story. I'm talking about the original now. One of the best Batman stories I've ever read. I thoroughly enjoy this book. Cannot praise it highly enough. Look at all this. This is 1 week of DC. Oh, DC's shit in the bed. DC sucks. There's nothing worth buying in DC. Hawkman's not even listed in here, right? Like, there's good stuff at DC, guys. I won't steer you wrong. I promise. I know it's not as exciting or cool as Marvel. Believe me, I'm an old school Marvel guy. I only got into DC. So I'm probably hitting my mic. I only got into DC, a little over a year ago. I knew about DC, but Marvel was always my bag. I became a DC fan because Marvel was so utterly dog shit. I was like, I refuse to buy any Marvel comics. There's not a single Marvel comic worth buying on the shelves. That was my idea. And so I was like, I'm excited about comics, so I love it. So I'm going to experience DC. And one of the cool things about it was I got to experience a new universe. Like, I got to experience what it was like to be a new fan again. And don't overlook that. That's one of the good reasons to try out new comics that you haven't before, is to go back to that sense of discovery that you may miss if you're an old-time fan. Now let's get into the Marvels, right? Here's the book. Oh, look at that reflection. Whew. Here is the book that got me into Marvel again. This is the series, the first books I bought physical. Actually, Ed Piskor's X-Men Grand Design I bought digitally. But this was the first comic I bought off the shelf of Marvel, number 1 that is, and got my feet wet, if you will. I decided, you know what? This is just a mini-series. Some fellow YouTubers, like Gateway into Comics, if you haven't watched his channel, he's a really good show. His is kind of like mine. He just talks about comics. So if you like kind of what I'm doing, you'll really like what he's doing. And he did this impassioned review of number 1 and talked about how it made him feel. And I was like, I got to read this book. I got to. And sure enough, I bought it, and it brought tears to my eyes. Like, literally, like it was that good. So I committed. I was like, it's just a mini series. I'm just not buying into the continuity or whatever. 6 issues. I don't want to miss this. Meanwhile, Donny Cates was doing this book called Venom, which was making some waves, and I knew about it, and I talked about the book, even though I'd never read it, just based on so many other trusted people's informed opinions that did read the book, people like Sergeant Batts, among others. The way they talked about the book, they showed the book, read some pages, things like that, I could tell this was quality stuff. But I did not understand completely until I read them myself. Take heed of that. Even though you may watch my videos or people like me and we kind of go through the book and we show some stuff and you can get a general understanding of the book, you'll never get a true feeling until you sit down with it yourself, without distractions, read it yourself and read multiple issues. Donny Cates is something special in the world of comics. He turned Venom. I've talked about Venom in other videos, so I'm buying Venom now. But I missed like the first 12 issues because of my prejudice against Marvel based on, I just don't like shit in my beds. So speaking of Donny Cates, he's doing the big event right now. And I did a review of number 1. I hosted a Comics Aficionados live stream about number 1 as well. It was a phenomenal book. $7.99 was ridiculous. $4.99 is still pissing me off. These should just be normal, but whatever. This is the best duo. Perhaps this guy's not a duo. Yeah, so this is the best duo in comics. Absolute Carnage was a very simple story, meaning it wasn't this big complex, overly ambitious type thing. It was just what comics are meant to do. And just be fun and dynamic and exciting and just over the top. That's what you're getting out of here. You get what is that? Miles Morales? Oh, you get in the first one. You got Spider-Man. You got Venom. You got Carnage, symbiotes. You got it's. I'm not even a symbiote guy. I talk about that in my video, but he won me over. And last, but certainly not least, holy shit. I did not think, since being back in the comics, I would be able to be excited for my favorite comic book series of all time. The reason I even became a collector of comics, X-Men. Here we have House of X number 3. Now, this is technically not X-Men, but it's X-Men. I have not liked X-Men in over 20 years. I left comics back in the 90s. At least left purchasing comics. I still was a fan of comics in general and would read trades. And I watched all the movies. And I kind of just stayed with an ear, but I wasn't an active buyer of comics. And it wasn't like I hated them. I didn't leave in a big fuss or anything. But I just was like, X-Men is dumb now. It just doesn't hold the water like it used to. And a lot of the other books were... Anyways, it was a long story. And then as I paid attention, I've had Marvel Unlimited accounts, off and on during the past, read some runs and stuff, and it just never got good. I read the Grant Morrison run that a lot of people tried to... I couldn't finish it. I think I read like 3/4 of it, and I was like, I'm just done with this. No one understands X-Men but Chris Claremont, apparently. Well, maybe Jonathan Hickman understands enough. One thing that he's doing that really is getting me is the sophistication of his story. This is a super ambitious, very sophisticated, complicated plot that's going on. And that's what Claremont used to do. He wouldn't weave it in so densely like this, but you would read X-Men and, over a period of a year or two, there'd be so much stuff going on, sub-threads. We used to joke about Chris Claremont was the king of subplots that didn't get resolved. But then all of a sudden, several years later, remember that subplot we used to joke about? That's coming into the story. Those were some of the things that made X-Men so fantastic. It felt important. Even the stuff that you thought, this is dumb, this is just plot holes or things that got left unfinished, those aren't important. No, they were important. They were there for Chris to constantly go back and mine. And I feel like not only is Hickman doing that in his own stuff, but he's going back to those points. And especially my favorite X-Men story of all time, Days of Future Past, I feel like he's telling a new perspective on Days of Future Past that I had never considered, which is the future is the past. That the X-Men are actually after that Days of... How can that be? Well, normally you couldn't be that way. But with Moira, it can. And you have to read the books to fully understand. I don't want to explain here. This is not the venue to talk about this. And I have too many comics that won't fit on my little stand here. Oh my God. What am I going to do? 4 Marvels. Okay, you guys can go. No, you're not going to go. All right. Sorry for that weird cut there. Don't want to sit there, hold the phone. I decided I'll just pause, rearrange. So here is my collection. This is a huge week. Oh, and I put 2 comics back in my box. I have the B cover for this, and I bought a back issue. So people ask me, someone asked me, I apologize for forgetting names. I have a terrible memory. Someone asked me in one of the comments about buying back issues. And I only occasionally buy back issues, mostly because this takes up all my comics budget. So a lot of times if I want to read stories, the way I don't buy necessarily back issues, I buy like trades and stuff on Comixology. Digital Comixology sales absolutely save you tons of money. If I will buy floppies in back issues for things that are really special to me and that I want to collect. Like I might go back and try to get the White Knight B covers of the original series just to collect them. I haven't know. I'm also wanting to collect the Jeff Johns Hawkman run. So some books I think are special and I'd like to just have physical copies of. It is fun to collect. I just don't have a lot of money. Anyways, the one that I threw back into my bin, I went through the back issue bin of Die, 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 which is a series that I'm a big fan of, and it's on hiatus currently. It's about to come back anytime, I think in September. I was pulling a comic out of my box, and I pulled, you know how like they're vertical. I pulled it out, and I tried to like pull it before it was all the way out, and I tweaked it and kind of bent it, and I was like all bummed. And so I needed number 1, but they had the number 1 without the word balloons. They had the actual cover, which is around here super hard to find. I've only ever seen 1 copy. It was in the bin. I was like, hey. So they're holding me in my box. Anyways, this has been a long video. As always, hopefully you made it this far. Thankfully on YouTube, they have this thing called fast forward. You can go to any part of the video. If you hate the beginning, you can skip ahead. But this is just a chance for me to shoot the shit with you guys. Hopefully you talk back on the comments. Also, you can come to Discord if you want to talk voice to voice or just also chat with other people. It's a better venue than YouTube comics. What do you think is going to be the best? There's a lot of good choices. This is one of the most exciting weeks I've had in comic. It's $59. It like blew the bank. Now, probably $50 without the box. $50 in comics. It's twice my budget. But man, excited. All these books. There's not a single one. Like, I get Batman still, and I don't know why. Because I know King's leaving, and I don't want the holes. But I'm like, actually, Detective Comics is one of the ones I'm least excited about. That's a book I like. Like, that's saying something. I'm really excited to start this Batman Superman, which I've never cared about Batman Superman team-up books ever in the past. But this is so good. Batman White Knight, Curse of White Knight, Spider-Man Life. This is the final issue of Spider-Man. I don't know what's going to be the best. I think either Curse of the White Knight or Life Story are probably going to be the best. Carnage, Absolute Carnage will be a ton of fun, but being a number 2 issue probably won't have enough story elements to be that impactful. This, I'm super excited. I have to read like right away. This book has so much plot development going on. The series, like, even though it's not my favorite book to read as fun, it's the one I'm most interested in, if that makes sense. It's interesting me the most. Carnage is probably telling a more fun story. Same with White Knight, Spider-Man Life Story. Justice League. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to pick. Jeez. There. What's the worst? How do you pick a worst out of this? Jeez. I don't know what's going to be the worst. What could possibly. Is it going to be. I'm going to say Flash. And I don't know why. I shouldn't. Because it's good. I don't buy it for myself. So that's cheating for me. There's no bad books. All right. I've been blabbing long enough. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, talk below, do all that stuff. And hope you guys get some great comics and have that enthusiasm too. Find books that you're enthused about. That's the great thing. See you later.